My tent has arrived from China. Let's find out what I actually bought. Today's the day. After 3 days of waiting to put the tent up because it arrived in the evening, then the next day was rainy. Yesterday was okay, but it was very windy. And although I am used to putting tents up in the wind, it's not ideal for a first put up. So the wind has dropped, the sun is still out, and the tent is going up. The actual process of ordering direct from China was very simple. General communication was good, but when it came down to the details, it became much harder. When I asked detailed questions about specification, the answers were not always clear. I sometimes wondered whether they were trying to give me the answer they thought I wanted rather than the actual answer. However, even with shipping, import duties and VAT, this tent cost less than a third of a similar item from the UK. Okay, it's all rolled out, but there's no instructions. So I've just sorted the guy lines out, and there's clearly two different lengths. I imagine the shorter ones go at the bottom and the longer ones higher up. So we'll go with that and see how it pans out. So the upper and lower tie-offs are going to come out to one peg. So I've tried to estimate how long those will be. We'll see. One of the points that never got cleared up during ordering was whether it was polycotton or 100% cotton canvas. So I was a bit disappointed to find that it was polycotton, but mostly I felt I had the tent I had ordered. The guy ropes are all on. And I'm not quite sure what we're supposed to do next because there's no instructions. I have seen videos of people putting up similar style tents where they put the side wall poles in first. So I'm going to put the centre pole in like I would with a bell tent and see if it can stay up like that while we do the rest. I decided to use this technique because it's what I'm used to doing with a bell tent, and the girls are also used to holding the door open for me, which helps to avoid getting a vacuum inside the tent and makes it easier to lever the centre pole into place. It wasn't quite as stable as with a bell tent, but it did the job to get us going. Well, I'm not sure I've got the right strategy here, but it's working, so I'm kind of keeping going now. What I did have to do, though, is I had to go and pop some guys on outside. I've put two poles in behind me and the two either side of the front door, but they would just sag in. Maybe that's okay, I don't know, but it seems to take up so much space inside, was making it difficult. So I'll show you what I've done outside. So this is the front door. I've just popped a peg in here. Almost certainly won't be in the ideal place, and one on the other side, just to provide some tension to keep the canvas up there. And if I come around the back, you can see I haven't done anything around here, no poles, no guys, but I did the two at the back same way, put the poles in and then very loosely pegged the guys. These poles went in pretty easily. They are not an even length, so we worked out that the longer section needs to be at the bottom, but it was fairly easy to see because it had to line up with where the Velcro was. So, we worked that out quickly enough. As I mentioned, there were no instructions, so I have pitched this as I've seen people do for similar style tents, with the two guy lines on one tent peg about 1 metre from the tent, and then the top part here, which is actually on a webbing strap a bit further out. However, it only actually came with 2 sets of pegs. One is obviously for the ground sheet. So I wonder whether the intention is that all 3 go to the same point. I don't know. I'm not sure it matters if it stays up, does it? Well, it's nearly up. I did drop the centre pole back down again to put in the curtains, which I'll show you in a minute. And I haven't positioned it right in the garden. These 2 front bits, I'm going to have to just stick maybe another guy line on them or something, because I'm standing on my patio and there just isn't anywhere I can put a tent peg in where it needs to go at the moment. So I'm going to just adapt that for now. But obviously that wouldn't be a problem in a campsite, and it wouldn't be a problem in the garden if I just moved it a little bit now that I know what space it needs. So here is one of the advantages, and one of the reasons that I wanted to try this style of tent is the higher walls. Originally, I bought a 5 metre, I think that's about 16 feet, bell tent with 60 centimetres, 2 feet high walls. Having used that for a little bit, it's great. Don't get me wrong, it's absolutely great. But obviously you get some pretty much dead space at the sides because it's only 60 centimetres high. So the second bell tent I bought was a 6 metre, I think that's about 19 feet, with 110 centimetre walls, which is, what's that, 3'8" or something like that. And that was amazing because you can use it all, you can get much closer to the sides, can't stand up at the sides, but certainly beds, chairs, cupboards could all go next to the side of the tent. So one of the attractions of this was that the pole structure here that you can see behind me means that you've got even higher walls. And actually I use poles on both my bell tents. I use short guy poles on the 5 metre standard and a kind of version of short guy poles that I made for myself with my 6 metre XL high-sided bell tent. And so I thought, well, you know what, I'm carrying poles anyway. Why not have them integral to the design? So that's what this does. And these are, I am 1'68", 5'6", and you can see they are not much shorter than I am. So, here I am standing very close to the edge of the tent, and certainly any furniture that I have is going to be very easily accommodated, and the beds. So you make more of the space you have. So I am not a big fan of all these little extras that people list as to why you should buy their bell tent. Like, somewhere for the electrical hookup to put in, a little bag for your keys to go in, and so on and so forth. To me, they have absolutely zero bearing on whether it's the right tent for me or not. And actually, do you know what? I find most of them just stay unused. But I'll show you what there is. So you can see behind me here, there's an entrance for an electrical hookup. The one thing I would say about this is that the position is more sensible than most. It is towards the back of the tent. Most of them seem to be at the front, and yet all the campsites I've been to with electrical hookups, they have the electric point at the back of your pitch and it's shared with the tent behind you and maybe one to the side. So, it's a nice extra and it's quite a sensible place for it. You've got a stove hole, and again, it's quite sensible design. Got nice big windows here. You unzip them. They've got a fly mesh and the outer there. Good stuff. None of these things are really anything that you don't get in any bell tent, dome tent, any of the others. So it's all good, but it's kind of just what I expect. So here I am at the entrance, and you can see it's only at shoulder level. So it's because here's the side poles, and it's actually down a little bit from that. The entrance is, well, I'd have a guess at being about 5 feet, which is, what is that? That's 150, maybe even a bit lower. Compared to my bell tents, I think one of them is 1.8, that's 6 feet, and one of them is 2 meters, which is 6.5 feet. So that is the only downside I've seen so far. The Stargazer Roof is amazing. It's completely different being in here than in a normal bell tent. On a day like today with gorgeous blue skies and sunshine, we have got so much light in here. And what I'm looking for this tent for actually is as a garden room. We have used our other bell tents in the garden quite frequently, but I'm hoping that this one will be our permanent garden room. And that's why I wanted the Stargazer roof, because if we're using it for in daytime, then light is lovely. Well, I have learnt with my bell tents that first impressions are important, definitely, but actually how you use them and what is an important feature and what is less so pretty much takes a few trips to find out. So we will see with this one. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.